The crystalline halls of the Galactic Educational Institute rang with the harmonious chimes of the morning cycle as students from 47 different species made their way to their respective learning chambers. The massive structure, carved from living coral and suspended in the void between three gas giants, had served as the premier educational facility for the galaxy's most promising young minds. For over 3 millennia, its bioluminescent corridors pulsed with a gentle blue light, while the walls themselves seemed to breathe with the rhythm of some cosmic heartbeat. Zephyr 9, a lithe Centaurian with gossamer wings that shimmered like oil on water, glided effortlessly through the main thoroughfare alongside her study group. Her compound eyes, each containing thousands of individual lenses, tracked the movement of every creature around her with the precision of a master navigator. Behind her, the hulking form of Thoric Vel, a silicon-based Kronthian whose body resembled a walking mountain of polished obsidian, moved with surprising grace despite his 3-meter height and massive crystalline formations jutting from his shoulders. "I still cannot fathom the Council's decision," Zephyr 9 chittered, her voice creating a melodic cascade of tones that her universal translator rendered into standard Galactic, to ban an entire species from the Institute based on such primitive behavior patterns. Thoric Vel's response rumbled through his chest cavity like distant thunder. The humans were always an anomaly. Their admission 3 cycles ago was controversial enough, but their conduct— He paused, his massive head turning toward the memorial wall where the names of 17 students were etched in quantum crystal. Perhaps the Council should have acted sooner. The group slowed as they approached the central plaza, where a massive holographic display showed the current news feeds from across the galaxy. The lead story, as it had been for the past 6 rotations, featured the image of a human face scarred, weathered, with eyes that seemed to hold depths of experience that made even the eldest among them uncomfortable. The caption read, "Humanity expelled from Galactic Educational Institute following violent incident. Velter Quinn, a graceful Aquarian whose translucent blue skin revealed the flowing patterns of her circulatory system, extended one of her 6 arms toward the display. Look at those features," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality of water flowing over stones. "So rigid, so harsh. The bone structure alone suggests a species bred for violence." The psychological profiles were clear from the beginning, added Nyx Valeris, a shadow-like being from the Umbral Collective, whose form seemed to shift and writhe even as they spoke. Humans exhibit aggression levels that are off the charts compared to civilized species. Their history is nothing but war, conquest, and brutality. The group paused at their usual gathering spot, a circular arrangement of bioluminescent pods that adjusted their shape and composition to accommodate each species' unique physiology. As they settled in, more students began to congregate around them, drawn by the animated discussion. "I attended several lectures with the human students," offered Kirikshas, a tall, ethereal being from the Psi Collective, whose thoughts manifested as visible Roro-like patterns around his elongated skull. They were unsettling, always asking questions about conflict resolution, military history, and something they called worst-case scenarios. It was as if they expected violence at every turn, and their physical capabilities, shuddered Melandra, a plant-based Florian whose bark-like skin rippled with disturbed bioluminescent patterns. I witnessed one of them, a female named Sarah, lift a mobility cart that had pinned a Kethri student. The cart weighed nearly 400 standard units, and she moved it as if it were made of compressed air. The murmur of agreement rippled through the growing crowd of students. Species from across the galaxy had gathered now, their various forms creating a kaleidoscope of shapes, colors, and energy patterns in the plaza. The universal translators worked overtime to keep up with the cacophony of languages, creating a symphony of electronic chirps, hums, and melodic tones. The incident with the Morthic delegation was the final straw, declared Zerthul Prime, a collective consciousness that manifested as a swirling cloud of metallic particles. 3 human students against 12 of the most advanced combat-trained species in the galaxy. The humans should have been subdued in moments. Instead, they hospitalized 6 of them, completed Thoric Vel grimly. The footage was disturbing enough that the council classified it immediately. But the reports. He paused, his crystalline features reflecting the holographic light in fractured patterns. The reports described combat techniques that seemed almost artistic in their brutality. Dr. Yulthara, the Institute's chief xenobiologist, approached the group with the measured gait of someone who had spent centuries studying the behavioral patterns of countless species. Her Valdorian physique, tall and elegant with skin that shifted through the spectrum of visible light, commanded immediate attention. The students fell silent as she raised one of her forearms. "Students," she began, her voice carrying the authority of ages. "I understand your curiosity about recent events, but I must remind you that speculation and rumor serve no constructive purpose. The Council's decision regarding the human students was based on comprehensive analysis of their species' psychological and behavioral profiles." "But Dr. Yulthara," interjected Zephyr 9, her wings creating soft whispers as they adjusted her position. "Surely the Council overreacted? The humans were, 20 individuals out of hundreds of billions, and they were selected as their species' most promising candidates for higher education." The ancient professor's skin shifted to a deep purple, indicating contemplation. "The selection process for any species is rigorous. Young one, the 20 humans who were granted admission represented the very best their species had to offer in terms of intelligence, emotional stability, and peaceful intent. If these individuals their intellectual and moral elite could resort to such violence," she left the sentence hanging, allowing the implications to sink in. The gathered students exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a subtle web of understanding that transcended species barriers. "The psychological evaluations were particularly troubling," continued Dr. Yulthara. "Humans possess what their own scientists call fight-or-flight responses that are amplified to a degree we've never encountered in any spacefaring species. Even their most peaceful individuals carry within them the capacity for what they term righteous fury, a state in which their usual moral constraints can be temporarily suspended in favor of protective violence." NYX Volaris shifted uneasily, their shadow form rippling with nervous energy. "I heard that during the incident, one of the human students actually smiled while fighting." "Who smiles during combat?" "Someone who enjoys it," responded Kirikshas, his thought patterns flickering with disturbed colors. The telepathic readings from that day showed emotional signatures unlike anything in our databases. Not fear, not anger, but something almost joyful, as if they were finally doing what they were meant to do. The crowd grew larger as word spread through the Institute's communication networks. Students from species that had never directly interacted with humans began sharing second-hand accounts, each more disturbing than the last. The ethereal collective spoke of humans who could function without sleep for days on end. The mechanical synthesis reported humans who could solve complex problems while under extreme physical stress. The hive mind confederacy described humans who seemed to thrive in chaos rather than seek order. "What troubles me most," said Velter Quinn, her translucent form shimmering with agitation, "is how they bonded with each other. Most species form educational partnerships based on intellectual compatibility or complementary skills. The humans formed what they called battle buddy relationships, partnerships, specifically designed around mutual protection and shared adversity. Even their recreational activities were violent," added Melandra, her bark-like skin darkening with distress. "I observed them engaging in something called sparring, ritualized combat, that they claimed was for fun. They would strike each other with sufficient force to cause injury, then laugh about it afterward." Dr. Yulthara nodded gravely. The Xenopsychology department spent considerable time analyzing human recreational patterns. Their entertainment media is filled with narratives celebrating conflict, survival against overwhelming odds, and individual sacrifice for group benefit. These are not the cultural artifacts of a peaceful species. As the discussion continued, more faculty members began to gather at the edges of the crowd. Professor Clack's mind grew. The Institute's expert on evolutionary biology approached with his characteristic clicking gait. His insectoid form, while unsettling to some species, was perfectly adapted for his research into the development of intelligence across the galaxy. The human evolutionary path is unique, he announced, his mandibles clicking in rhythm with his words. Most species achieve spaceflight through cooperation and resource sharing. Humans develop their technology through competition and conflict. Their entire scientific method is based on combat theories battling for supremacy. Peer review as intellectual warfare, research conducted like military campaigns. It explains their rapid advancement, observed Zerthul, Prime, their particle clouds swirling with analytical patterns. In less than a century, they progressed from primitive chemical rockets to viable interstellar travel. Most species require millennia to achieve such progress, because most species don't treat technological development as a matter of survival, replied Professor Clax Mindrew. Humans approached every challenge as if their extinction depended on solving it. Their space program was literally born from weapons research. Their medical advances came from treating battlefield injuries. Their computing technology emerged from code breaking during their global conflicts. The implications hung in the air, like a toxic cloud. Here was a species that had achieved everything the galaxy's peaceful civilizations had accomplished, but through paths that seemed antithetical to the very concept of higher education and social advancement. I still remember the first day they arrived, said Kirkshas, his telepathic emanations taking on a somber hue. They walked differently than other species, not with the measured confidence of beings secure in their place in the universe, but with the constant alertness of predators expecting ambush. Even in the most peaceful settings, they were always scanning, always ready. The dietary requirements were another red flag, added Melandra. Most civilized species have evolved beyond the need for organic proteins derived from other sentient beings. Humans not only required such nutrients, but seemed to crave them. I witnessed several of them discussing the proper preparation of various animal proteins with an enthusiasm that bordered on disturbing. Dr. Yulthara's skin shifted to a deep red, indicating serious concern. The ethics committee spent considerable time reviewing human food practices. Their home world is apparently covered with facilities dedicated to the mass production of protein through the systematic breeding and slaughter of other species. They call it agriculture, but the scale and efficiency suggest something closer to industrial warfare against other forms of life. The conversation was interrupted by a soft chime indicating the beginning of the academic period. As students began to disperse to their various learning chambers, the discussion continued in smaller groups, each carrying fragments of the larger conversation into their respective classes. In the advanced theoretical physics chamber, Zephyr 9 found herself partnered with students from 3 different species for a project involving quantum mechanics applications. In faster-than-light travel, as they worked through the complex equations, she couldn't help but remember the human student who had previously occupied the workspace next to theirs. Marcus, she said suddenly, causing her partners to pause in their calculations. That was his name, Marcus Chen Valdez. He approached these same problems from angles none of us had considered. How so? Asked her Kethri partner, their scaled form shifting to indicate curiosity. He seemed to assume that any faster-than-light system would need to function under combat conditions. Zephyr 9 explained, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays around them. While we focused on efficiency and energy conservation, he was calculating how the systems would perform under damage, how they could be rapidly repaired, how they might be used tactically against other vessels. Fascinating, murmured the Kethri, and disturbing. To think of faster-than-light travel as a weapon system rather than a tool for exploration and knowledge sharing. Meanwhile, in the biological sciences section, Melandra was working with a group studying evolutionary adaptation patterns. Their current project involved analyzing how different species had developed intelligence and social structures, but the discussion kept returning to the absent human perspectives. Sarah Kim Okafor had theories about evolutionary pressure that were uncomfortable, Melandra admitted to her study group. She suggested that intelligence developed not as a tool for understanding the universe, but as a weapon for survival in hostile environments. She claimed that every major breakthrough in human history was driven by the need to overcome threats. Surely that's an oversimplification, objected a Valdorian student whose skin flickered with disbelief. Intelligence is inherently about pattern recognition, problem solving, and social cooperation. That's what we argued, Melandra replied, her bark-like skin rippling with remembered discomfort. But she had examples. Their mathematics emerged from calculating trajectories for projectile weapons. Their chemistry developed from creating explosive compounds. Their biology advanced through studying how to cause and prevent death. Even their art and music seemed to be about conflict, struggle, and triumph over adversity. The academic day continued with similar discussions erupting across all disciplines. In the Cultural Studies department, students analyzed human literature and found themes of violence, sacrifice, and struggle that seemed to permeate every aspect of their creative expression. In the philosophy chambers, young minds grappled with human ethical systems that seemed to allow for, and even celebrate, violence under certain circumstances. As the day cycle drew to a close, the students reconvened in the central plaza, their minds buzzing with questions and disturbing realizations. The holographic displays continued to show images of the expelled humans, now accompanied by analysis from xenopsychologists and evolutionary biologists from across the galaxy. "I've been thinking about the incident," said Thoric Vel, his massive form casting complex shadows in the bioluminescent lighting. The Morthic delegation wasn't just any group of students. They were the military academy's finest trained warriors with centuries of combat experience. How did 3 human civilians defeat them? The reports mentioned something called improvised tactics, replied Nix Valeris, their shadow form rippling with uncertainty. Apparently, the humans used the learning environment itself as a weapon. Furniture, laboratory equipment, even decorative elements became tools of combat. But that's not possible, protested Zerthul Prime, their particle cloud swirling with confusion. The Morthic have trained for millennia in adaptive combat. They should have been able to counter any improvised strategy. Dr. Yulthara, who had been listening quietly to the discussion, finally spoke. The preliminary analysis suggests that the humans didn't just use their environment as weapons. They seemed to understand the psychological profile of their opponents better than the Morthic understood themselves. Every action was calculated not just for physical effect, but for maximum psychological impact. Meaning, asked Velter Quinn, her translucent form shimmering with curiosity. Meaning they fought not just to win, but to demoralize, the professor replied gravely. They turned combat into a form of psychological warfare that none of us had anticipated. The Morthic reported that by the end of the encounter, they were questioning their own competence and training. The humans had somehow made them afraid. The revelation sent ripples of unease through the assembled students. The idea that combat could be used not just for physical victory, but for psychological domination, was alien to most of their species' thinking. Warfare, when it existed at all in their cultures, was generally about territorial disputes or resource allocation, straightforward conflicts with clear objectives and established rules. The review board's report mentioned something else, continued Dr. Yulthara. The humans exhibited what they called battlefield adaptability. They seemed to thrive in chaotic situations, becoming more effective as the conflict escalated rather than less. This is contrary to every known pattern of intelligent behavior under stress. As the evening cycle approached, the students began to disperse to their living quarters, but the conversations continued in smaller groups throughout the residential sectors. The human presence had been brief, only 3 galactic cycles, but their impact on the Institute's social and academic dynamics had been profound. In the Zentarian dormitory, Zephyr 9 found herself unable to settle into her usual meditation routine. Instead, she accessed the Institute's archives, searching for any additional information about human behavior patterns. What she found only deepened her confusion. The psychological profiles painted a picture of a species that was simultaneously highly intelligent and deeply primitive. Humans showed remarkable capacity for abstract thinking, creative problem solving, and emotional empathy, yet they also exhibited reflexes and instincts that seemed more suited to apex predators than to civilized beings. Their contradictions, she muttered to herself, her wings creating soft whispers of frustration. How can a species be both so advanced and so savage? The question would haunt her dreams that night, as it would haunt the dreams of students across the institute. The human band had been intended to restore peace and order to the galaxy's premier educational facility. Instead, it had created a mystery that seemed to grow more complex with each passing day. In the depths of the Institute's classified archives, however, lay footage that would soon change everything the students thought they knew about their former human classmates, footage that would reveal the true nature of the species that had been expelled from their midst, footage that would make them question everything they believed about intelligence, civilization, and the very nature of survival in an often hostile universe. The night cycle settled over the Institute like a blanket of stars, but sleep would not come easily to minds troubled by questions about the thin line between civilization and savagery, between intelligence and instinct, between the species they had thought they understood and the reality of what humans truly were. The morning cycle brought with it an unexpected announcement that echoed through every corridor, chamber, and living space within the Institute. Director Vexthalen, Core, the ancient ascended being who had overseen the facility for over 2 millennia, rarely addressed the student body directly. His crystalline voice, transmitted through the quantum communication network, carried a weight that made even the most irreverent students pause their activities. Students and faculty of the Galactic Educational Institute. The director's words resonated with harmonic overtones that suggested deep contemplation. Recent discussions regarding the human expulsion have reached a frequency and intensity that threatens to disrupt our educational mission. Therefore, the Council has decided to provide additional context to help you understand the necessity of our actions. Zephyr 9 felt her wings flutter with anticipation as she joined the stream of students flowing toward the Grand Assembly Chamber, the massive spherical room, capable of accommodating over 10,000 beings in its gravitationally adjusted seating arrangements, filled quickly with the excited chatter of dozens of species. The bioluminescent walls pulsed with a calming blue rhythm, but the energy in the room was anything but calm. Thorokvel had claimed a section designed for larger silicon-based life forms, his crystalline mass catching and refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. Near him, Velterquin floated in a specialized aquatic environment, her translucent form rippling with curiosity. The diversity of the assembled crowd was staggering beings of energy, flesh, metal, and mineral, all united by their shared quest for knowledge and their collective bewilderment about the human situation. I have a theory about why they're doing this, whispered Nyx Valeris, their shadow form flickering between dimensions. The incident was worse than they initially reported. They need to justify their actions to prevent panic, or countered. Kirikshas, his telepathic emanations creating aurora-like patterns around his elongated skull. They're realizing that the student body won't rest until they understand what happened. Better to control the narrative than let rumors spread. The chamber's central platform began to descend from the ceiling, carrying with it a figure that commanded immediate silence. Director Vexthalen Core appeared as a being of pure geometric perfection, his form suggesting both crystal and light, existing in dimensions that most species could only partially perceive. His presence filled the chamber with an aura of ancient wisdom and absolute authority. My young scholars, he began, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate within the very atoms of their beings. I have watched civilizations rise and fall, seen species evolve from primitive hunters to masters of quantum mechanics. In all my experience, I have never encountered a species as complex as humanity. The director paused, allowing his words to settle into the minds of his diverse audience. Behind him, holographic displays began to materialize, showing star charts, evolutionary timelines, and psychological profiles that painted a picture of human development. Unlike anything in the galactic databases, humanity achieved faster-than-light travel in less than 300 years. From their first powered flight, he continued, the displays shifting to show the remarkable trajectory of human technological advancement. Most species require millennia To make such progress, the Valdorians took 4,000 years. The Kronthians required 6,000. The Zentarians, with their advanced neural processing, still needed 2,000 years. Zephyr 9 felt her compound eyes tracking the impossible timeline displayed before her. The progression was not gradual, as it had been for every other known species, but explosive, punctuated by periods of rapid advancement that seemed to coincide with major conflicts in human history. The correlation is undeniable, the director continued, his form shifting to indicate deep concern. Every major breakthrough in human technology, science, and social organization occurred during or immediately following periods of intense conflict. Their species doesn't just adapt to challenges, they seem to require them for advancement. Professor Clack's mind materialized beside the director, his insectoid form clicking with agitation. The xenobiological analysis reveals patterns that challenge our fundamental understanding of intelligence evolution, he announced, his mandibles creating complex harmonic patterns. Humans possess what we've termed crisis-driven adaptation, the ability to undergo rapid evolutionary changes in response to existential threats. But that's impossible, protested a voice from the ethereal collective section. Evolution requires generations to manifest significant changes. No species can adapt that quickly. No species we've encountered previously, corrected Professor Clack's Mindrew. Human military history shows evidence of tactical and strategic evolution occurring within single battles. They don't just learn from conflict, they evolve during it. The holographic displays shifted to show anatomical comparisons between humans and other species. The differences were subtle, but significant: denser bone structure, more efficient muscle fiber arrangements, and most disturbing of all, a nervous system that seemed specifically designed to function optimally under extreme stress. Their adrenal systems are unlike anything in our databases, added Dr. Yulthara, who had joined the presentation. Most species experience decreased cognitive function under stress. Humans experience enhancement. Their reaction times improve, their strength increases, and their pain tolerance reaches levels that would be fatal to most other forms of life. Melandra felt her bark-like skin rippling with disturbed patterns as she processed the implications. Are you saying that humans are literally built for war? Not built for war, replied the director, his crystalline form pulsing with complex emotions. They are built by war. Every aspect of their physiology, psychology, and social structure has been shaped by millions of years of constant conflict. They are not a species that happens to be capable of violence. They are a species that exists because of violence. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of shocked responses as beings from across the galaxy tried to process this revelation. The universal translators worked overtime to keep up with the flood of questions, concerns, and expressions of disbelief. Order, commanded the director, his voice carrying harmonics that instantly silenced the crowd. There's more you must understand about our former human students. The displays shifted again, this time showing psychological profiles of the 20 humans who had been admitted to the Institute. Each profile was marked with indicators that, in hindsight, painted a disturbing picture of barely contained potential for violence. Marcus Chen Valdez, the director announced, highlighting one of the profiles, selected for his exceptional abilities in theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. What we didn't initially understand was that his thesis work focused on weaponizing quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication during combat scenarios. Sarah Kim Okafor, another profile appeared, showing a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, admitted for her groundbreaking work in xenobiology and interspecies communication. Her research proposal, we later learned, was designed to identify biological weaknesses in potential enemy species. One by one, the profiles revealed the true nature of each human student's academic interests. Every field of study, every research proposal, every seemingly innocent intellectual pursuit had military applications that the selection committee had failed to recognize. But their personalities, protested Velter Quinn, her translucent form, shimmering with confusion, they seemed so peaceful, so eager to learn and contribute to galactic knowledge. Indeed, agreed the director, his form shifting to indicate profound unease. This is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of human psychology. They are capable of genuine compassion, deep emotional connections, and sincere dedication to peaceful pursuits. But these qualities exist alongside, and are not incompatible with, and capacity for violence that defies our understanding of intelligent behavior. Dr. Yulthara stepped forward, her skin cycling through colors that indicated extreme concern. The psychological evaluations revealed something we initially dismissed as a translation error. When asked about their greatest fears, every human student gave the same type of response: not death, not pain, not failure, but the fear of being unable to protect others. Their entire psychological framework is built around the concept of defensive aggression. Which brings us to the incident, the director announced, his voice carrying undertones that made several students retreat deeper into their seating arrangements. The Morthic delegation was not visiting as students. They were here as part of a military assessment program, evaluating potential threats to galactic security. The revelation hit the assembled students like a physical blow. The Morthic were not just another species, they were the galaxy's acknowledged experts in combat and security. Their presence at the Institute had been described as a cultural exchange, but the reality was far more sinister. The Morthic had identified humanity as a potential threat to galactic stability. Continued the director, their plan was to provoke an incident that would justify preemptive action against the human homeworld. They selected 3 students they believed would be easy to manipulate into a violent response. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The incident had not been a spontaneous outbreak of human violence. It had been a carefully orchestrated trap designed to justify genocide. They chose poorly. Professor Klaxmindru observed, his clicking taking on ominous tones. Marcus Chenvaldez, Sarah Kim Okafor, and David Running Bear were not random selections. They were among the most psychologically stable and emotionally mature of the human students. If the Morthic could not provoke them into unprovoked violence, they would not be able to justify their intended actions. But they did provoke violence, pointed out Nix Volaris, their shadow form rippling with confusion. The reports clearly stated that the humans attacked. First, the reports were incomplete, the director replied, his crystalline form pulsing with something that might have been regret. The Morthic began their provocation subtly: psychological pressure, social isolation, academic sabotage. When these methods failed to produce the desired response, they escalated to physical intimidation. The holographic displays shifted to show a timeline of events leading up to the incident. What had been reported as a sudden outburst of human violence was revealed to be the culmination of weeks of systematic harassment and escalating threats. The humans endured 3 weeks of increasingly severe provocation, Dr. Yulthara reported, her skin cycling through colors that indicated deep distress. They reported each incident to the appropriate authorities, followed all established protocols, and sought peaceful resolutions at every opportunity. So what changed? Asked Kirikshas, his telepathic emanations creating disturbed patterns in the air around him. The Morthic made a tactical error, replied the director grimly. They threatened other students, non-human students, who had befriended the humans. In their psychological profiles, we noted that humans have an unusual capacity for forming protective bonds with beings outside their own species. The Morthic interpreted this as weakness. The displays showed images of the 3 humans, Marcus, Sarah, and David, alongside various alien students who had worked with them on projects or shared meals in the dining facilities. The relationships appeared genuine, characterized by mutual respect and intellectual curiosity. The final provocation occurred in the Advanced Theoretical Physics Laboratory. The director continued. The Morthic delegation surrounded Zephyr 9 and 2 other students, using their superior size and strength to intimidate them, while demanding information about human research projects. Zephyr 9 felt her wings freeze mid-flutter as she realized she was part of the story being told. She remembered that day, the fear, the confusion, the sudden appearance of Marcus and his companions. The 3 humans arrived to find their friends being threatened. Professor Klaxmindru reported, his form clicking with what might have been approval. At this point, they issued a single warning to the Morthic delegation to cease their actions and leave the laboratory. the Morthic response was to escalate to physical violence. Dr. Yulthara added, her skin now cycling through deep reds and purples. They believed that 12 trained warriors could easily subdue 3 untrained civilians. They were incorrect. The director's form pulsed with complex emotions as he prepared to reveal the final part of the story. What happened next challenges every assumption we have made about the nature of intelligence, civilization, and the relationship between peaceful intent and defensive capability. The chamber held its collective breath as the director paused, his crystalline form reflecting the holographic displays in patterns that seemed to shift between beautiful and terrifying. The humans did not simply fight back, he announced, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond normal perception. They implemented a coordinated tactical response that neutralized the threat, while minimizing casualties. In 17 minutes, they had subdued 12 of the galaxy's most skilled warriors without causing a single fatality. But the injuries, protested Thorokvel, his massive form creating harmonic resonances throughout the chamber. The reports mentioned severe injuries to the Morthic delegation. Precisely calculated injuries, corrected Professor Clack's Mindrew. Each strike was designed to incapacitate without causing permanent damage. The humans somehow assessed the physiological vulnerabilities of 12 different beings and adapted their techniques accordingly in real time. During combat, the revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled students. The idea that anyone could perform such complex biological analysis while engaged in physical combat was beyond the capabilities of even the most advanced species. The most disturbing aspect, continued Dr. Yulthara, was their emotional state during the encounter. Telepathic readings from Kirikshas, who witnessed the event, showed that the humans remained calm throughout the confrontation, not the artificial calm of trained warriors, but the natural composure of beings who were exactly where they were supposed to be, doing exactly what they were meant to do. Kirikshas felt his thought patterns flickering with remembered trauma as he recalled that day. The humans had moved with a fluid precision that seemed almost choreographed, yet their telepathic signatures had remained as stable, as if they were solving mathematical equations. Rather than engaging in life-or-death combat, the Council's decision to expel the humans was not based on their actions during the incident, the director announced, his form pulsing with what might have been shame. Their response was proportional, defensive, and ultimately merciful. The decision was based on the implications of their capabilities. Implications, asked Zerthul Prime, their particle cloud swirling with confusion. If 3 untrained human civilians could defeat 12 Morthic warriors, the director replied, his voice carrying undertones of profound unease. What might trained human military personnel be capable of if these were their students, their intellectuals, their peace-loving academics? What must their soldiers be like? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud, poisoning the atmosphere of the chamber with its implications. The students began to understand that the human expulsion had not been about maintaining peace. Within the Institute, it had been about preventing a potential galactic catastrophe. The footage you have all heard rumors about, the director continued, remains classified not because it shows human brutality, but because it shows human competence. The galaxy is not prepared to confront the reality of what humanity represents. As the presentation concluded and the students began to disperse, a new understanding settled over the Institute. Like a heavy blanket, the humans had not been expelled because they were violent. They had been expelled because they were effective. And somewhere in the depths of the classified archives, footage existed that would prove just how effective they could be. But some secrets, once revealed, could never be hidden again. And some students were about to discover that curiosity, once awakened, could drive beings to seek answers regardless of the consequences. The revelation in the Grand Assembly Chamber had created an unexpected effect throughout the Institute. Rather than settling the matter, the director's explanation had only intensified the students' fascination. With their former human classmates, small groups gathered in shadowed alcoves and quiet corners, their conversations filled with speculation and growing admiration for the beings they had so recently dismissed as primitive savages. Zephyr 9 found herself at the center of many of these discussions. Her status as one of the students the humans had protected, lending weight to her words. She sat in the Zentarian meditation garden, a crystalline grove where the walls pulsed with soft bioluminescent patterns that helped her species achieve mental clarity. Round her, representatives from a dozen different species had gathered to hear her first-hand account of the incident. "I still remember the moment Marcus appeared," she said, her compound eyes reflecting the gentle light as she recalled that day. The Morthic had us surrounded, their bulk casting shadows that seemed to swallow the laboratory's illumination. They weren't just intimidating us, they were studying us, taking measurements, making notes about our physiological responses to fear. Thorokvel shifted his massive crystalline form, the movement creating harmonic resonances that indicated deep interest. "What did you sense from the humans when they arrived?" "That's what I've been trying to understand," Zephyr 9 replied, her wings creating soft whispers as she adjusted her position. Most species, when confronted with a threat, broadcast their emotional state through body language, pheromones, or psychic emanations. The humans, they were quiet, not the stillness of suppressed fear, but the calm of complete focus. "I was monitoring the situation telepathically," added Kirikshas, his thought patterns creating subdued aurora displays round his elongated skull. The Morthic were radiating confidence, anticipation, even enjoyment. They believed they had engineered the perfect trap. The humans registered as empty, not emotionally void, but as if they had compartmentalized everything except the immediate, tactical situation. NYX Volaris flickered between dimensions, their shadow form rippling with curiosity. The director mentioned they issued a warning. What exactly did they say? Zephyr 9 closed her eyes, accessing the perfect recall that was her species' gift. Marcus stepped forward and spoke in that peculiar calm tone humans use when they're being extremely polite. He said, "Honored delegates, you appear to be causing distress to our fellow students. We respectfully request that you discontinue this behavior and allow them to return to their studies." "That doesn't sound like the prelude to violence," observed Velter Quinn, her translucent form shimmering with confusion. The Morthic thought the same thing, Kirikshas replied, his telepathic emanations taking on darker hues. Their leader, Graxthmore, actually laughed. He told the humans that they were interrupting important business and should leave before they embarrassed themselves. "What happened then?" asked Melandra, her bark-like skin rippling with anticipation. Sarah stepped forward, Zephyr 9 continued, her voice taking on a tone of growing amazement. She was smiling, not the aggressive display of teeth that some species use to show dominance, but the gentle expression humans reserve for those they pity. She said, "I'm sorry you feel that way. We're going to count to 10, and then we're going to remove you from this laboratory. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." The gathered students exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a subtle web of shared disbelief. The idea that 3 beings would calmly announce their intention to physically remove 12 trained warriors seemed like either supreme confidence or complete insanity. The count was the most unsettling part, Kirikshas added, his thought patterns flickering with remembered unease. They counted in unison, in perfect synchronization, while slowly spreading apart to form a triangular formation. The Morthic were still laughing when they reached 7. "And then," prompted Thorokvel, his crystalline form resonating with anticipation. "Then the humans moved," Zephyr 9 said simply, "and everything changed." The group fell silent, each species processing the implications in their own way. The bioluminescent patterns in the garden pulsed with their collective emotional state, creating a complex symphony of light and shadow. "I've been reviewing the incident reports," announced a new voice. The students turned to see Dr. Yulthara approaching, her Valdorian form cycling through colors that indicated deep contemplation. The medical analysis of the Morthic injuries reveals something extraordinary about human combat capabilities. The professor settled into the garden's adaptive seating, her presence immediately commanding attention. "The injuries were not random," she continued. "Each Morthic was struck in precise locations that would cause maximum incapacitation, with minimum permanent damage. This requires anatomical knowledge that should have taken years of study to acquire." But the humans had only been at the Institute for 3 cycles, protested Zerthul Prime, their particle cloud swirling with confusion. How could they have learned so much about our physiologies? They didn't learn it here. Dr. Yulthara replied, her skin shifting to colors that indicated profound unease. They arrived with it. Every human student came to the Institute with comprehensive biological profiles of every major species in the galaxy. We initially assumed it was for cultural sensitivity and communication purposes, but it was for combat applications, Nix Valeris concluded, their shadow form rippling with realization. Indeed, the professor confirmed, the human education system apparently includes mandatory study of xenobiology. From a tactical perspective, they called it threat assessment and claimed it was standard diplomatic protocol. Melandra felt, her bark-like skin darkening with disturbed patterns. They came here already knowing how to fight us, all of us. Not just how to fight, Dr. Yulthara corrected. How to fight efficiently, effectively, and with minimal casualties. The pattern of injuries suggests they were simultaneously protecting themselves, neutralizing threats, and preserving the lives of their opponents. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled students. The idea that humanity's educational system included tactical xenobiology as a basic requirement painted a picture of a species that was prepared for conflict at every level of society. There's something else, Dr. Yulthara continued, her form cycling through colors that indicated extreme concern. The classified footage from the incident shows something that challenges our fundamental understanding of combat psychology. The students leaned forward, their various forms of attention focusing creating a visible tension in the garden's atmosphere. The professor seemed to struggle with her next words, as if revealing information that she wasn't entirely comfortable sharing. The humans were talking to each other during the fight, she said finally, not shouting orders or battle cries, but casual conversation. Sarah was explaining quantum mechanics to Marcus, while simultaneously disabling 3 Morthic warriors. David was describing his sister's wedding plans, while systematically dismantling the Morthic formation. That's impossible, protested Thorok Vel, his massive form creating discordant harmonics. Combat requires total concentration. No being can divide their attention between philosophical discussion and physical conflict. Apparently humans can, Dr. Yulthara replied. The footage shows them operating on multiple cognitive levels simultaneously. They were aware of every threat, every opportunity, every tactical development, while maintaining normal conversation about completely unrelated topics. The students sat in stunned silence, trying to process the implications. The garden's bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in chaotic rhythms, responding to the collective emotional turmoil of its occupants. I need to see this footage, Zephyr 9 said suddenly, her wings creating sharp whispers of determination. We all do. The director said it was classified to protect us from the truth about human capabilities, but how can we make informed decisions about our own safety if we don't understand what we're dealing with? The footage is stored in the Council's secure archives, Dr. Yulthara warned. Access is restricted to senior faculty and council members only. The quantum encryption alone would require specialized equipment to bypass. Equipment that might be available in the Advanced Computing Laboratory, suggested Kirikshas, his thought patterns taking on conspiratorial hues. The human students left behind several research projects that included quantum decryption algorithms. You're suggesting we break into classified archives? Asked Velter, Quinn, her translucent form shimmering with a mixture of fear and excitement. I'm suggesting we exercise our right to understand the truth about beings who were our classmates and friends, Zephyr 9 replied firmly. The council made a decision that affects all of us, but they've only given us part of the information they used to make that decision. The debate that followed was intense but brief. The students had been raised in cultures that valued knowledge and understanding above all else. The idea that information was being withheld from them, regardless of the justification, was fundamentally offensive to their educational principles. If we do this, warned Nix Valeris, their shadow form flickering, with nervous energy, there will be consequences. The council doesn't classify information lightly. Then we'll face those consequences. Thorok Vel rumbled, his crystalline form ringing with determination. But we'll face them with complete knowledge rather than partial ignorance. The plan that emerged was surprisingly sophisticated for a group of students. But then again, these were the brightest minds from across the galaxy. Zerthul Prime would use their distributed consciousness to monitor security systems and create diversions. Kirikshas would provide telepathic coordination and early warning of approaching faculty. Nyx Volaris would use their interdimensional capabilities to bypass physical security measures. The advanced computing laboratory is secured during the night cycle. Dr. Yulthara observed, her skin cycling through colors that suggested she was both warning them and inadvertently providing tactical information. The automated systems are sophisticated, but they were designed to prevent unauthorized access, not to stop beings who are already authorized to use the facility. And the human decryption algorithms, asked Melandra, her bark-like skin showing patterns of nervous excitement, are still active in the laboratory's memory banks, the professor replied. Marcus, Sarah, and David left their research in an incomplete state when they were expelled. The systems are still running their computational models. As the group dispersed to prepare for their unauthorized expedition, Dr. Yulthara remained in the garden, her form cycling through colors that indicated deep internal conflict. She was about to violate her oath as a faculty member, but her scientific curiosity and genuine concern for her students' well-being overrode her institutional loyalty. The night cycle deepened as the conspirators made their final preparations. Each species brought unique capabilities to the mission: Centaurian flight and sensory enhancement, Kranthian strength and harmonic resonance, Valdorian adaptability and problem-solving, umbral dimensional manipulation and psycholective telepathic coordination. At the designated time, they converged on the advanced computing laboratory. The facility's bioluminescent corridors pulsed with the slow rhythm of night cycle maintenance, while automated systems hummed quietly in the background. The laboratory itself was a marvel of quantum engineering, its crystalline architecture designed to isolate and enhance computational processes. The human research terminal is still active, Zephyr 9 observed, her compound eyes tracking the flowing patterns of data across the holographic displays. The decryption algorithms are more sophisticated than anything in the galactic databases because they were designed to break galactic encryption, Kirikshas realized, his thought patterns flickering with admiration and alarm. The humans didn't just study our biology, they studied our information security systems. Working together, the students began to unravel the quantum encryption protecting the classified footage. The process was painstakingly slow, requiring them to navigate security protocols that had been designed by some of the galaxy's most brilliant minds. But the human algorithms provided insights and approaches that no galactic species had previously considered. I'm detecting movement in the primary corridor, Zerthul Prime reported, their particle clouds swirling with alarm. Faculty patrol approaching. Estimated arrival in 15 minutes. Almost there, Zephyr 9 replied, her wings creating urgent whispers as she worked to finalize the decryption sequence. The final security layer is more sophisticated than the others. It's almost as if they expected someone to try this, or as if they wanted us to try this. Nyx Volaris observed, their shadow form flickering with sudden realization. What if Dr. Yulthara's information wasn't accidental? What if the faculty wants us to see this footage? The possibility hung in the air like a toxic cloud, but it was too late to reconsider. The final encryption barrier dissolved, and the classified footage began to materialize in the laboratory's holographic display system. What they saw in those first few seconds would change everything they thought they knew about intelligence, warfare, and the nature of civilization itself. The footage showed 3 humans moving with a fluid grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics, their actions coordinated with a precision that suggested either extensive training or some form of collective consciousness. But it was what happened next that would haunt their dreams and reshape their understanding of what it meant to be human. The footage revealed not just the tactical brilliance of the 3 students, but something far more profound and terrifying about the species that had been expelled from their midst. By the ancient stars, whispered Thorak Vel, his crystalline form resonating with frequencies that indicated profound shock. They're not just fighting, they're enjoying it. The revelation was about to shatter every assumption they had made about the relationship between intelligence and violence, about the nature of civilization, and about what it truly meant to be human in a galaxy full of beings who had never learned to find joy in the art of survival. The holographic display filled the laboratory with light that seemed to pulse with its own malevolent energy as the classified footage began to play. The students watched in stunned silence as the events in the Advanced Theoretical Physics Laboratory unfolded before them with crystalline clarity. Every detail was captured in perfect resolution: the positioning of bodies, the micro-expressions on faces, the subtle shifts in posture that preceded action. Temporal index, 14 hours 32 minutes and 17 seconds. The system announced in its neutral tone. Location, Advanced Theoretical Physics Laboratory, Level 7, Section C. The scene showed Zephyr 9 and two other students, backed against a wall of quantum computing equipment, their forms radiating the unmistakable signs of fear. The 12 Morthic warriors had arranged themselves in a classic intimidation formation, their bulk casting oppressive shadows while their leader, Graxt Moore, interrogated the trapped students with barely contained violence. "I remember this moment," Zephyr 9 whispered, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. "I thought we were going to die." The Morthic weren't just asking questions, they were probing for weaknesses, testing our breaking points. The footage showed Graxt Moore reaching toward one of the students with a massive claw, his intent clearly malicious. At precisely that moment, the laboratory's entrance chimed softly, and three figures appeared in the doorway. Marcus Chen Valdez, Sarah Kim Okafor, and David Running Bear stepped into the frame, with movements that seemed casual yet somehow purposeful. They weren't hurrying, weren't displaying any signs of alarm or aggression. They simply arrived. "Watch their eyes," Kirikshas observed, his telepathic emanations creating subtle patterns in the air. "They're not looking at the Morthic, they're cataloging everything: distances, angles, potential weapons, escape routes. They're conducting a complete tactical assessment in seconds." The footage showed Marcus stepping forward, his posture relaxed, but somehow commanding attention. When he spoke, his voice carried the peculiar calm that the students had learned to associate with human politeness. "Honored delegates, you appear to be causing distress to our fellow students. We respectfully request that you discontinue this behavior and allow them to return to their studies." Graxt Moore's response was exactly as Zephyr 9 had remembered: laughter that rumbled through the laboratory like distant thunder. "Humans," he sneered, his massive form turning toward the three newcomers. "I was hoping you would appear. This will save us considerable effort." "Notice the communication," Dr. Yulthara observed, her skin cycling through colors that indicated intense analysis. "The humans are exchanging information without speaking. Watch their positioning there, moving into a tactical formation while maintaining the appearance of casual conversation." Sarah's response to the Morthic leader was accompanied by that gentle smile that had unnerved Zephyr 9 so much. "I'm sorry you feel that way. We're going to count to 10, and then we're going to remove you from this laboratory. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." The count began, and the students watching the footage could see what they had missed during the actual event. The humans weren't just counting, they were synchronizing their movements, communicating through subtle gestures, and positioning themselves with mathematical precision. "1," Marcus said calmly, while simultaneously shifting his weight to his left foot and flexing his fingers. "2," Sarah continued, her smile never wavering as she calculated angles and distances. "3," David added, his seemingly relaxed posture actually preparing for explosive movement. "The Morthic are still laughing." At 7, Thorikvel observed, his crystalline form resonating with growing tension. "They have no idea what's about to happen." 8. The humans counted in unison, their formation now perfectly triangular. 9. And the air in the laboratory seemed to thicken with potential energy. 10. They concluded, together, and then they moved. What happened next defied every understanding the students had about the nature of combat, intelligence, and the relationship between the two. The humans didn't attack, they flowed. Their movements were coordinated with a precision that suggested either extensive training or some form of collective consciousness. But the footage's audio pickup revealed the impossible truth. Marcus, did you finish the quantum entanglement calculations for Professor Vextel's assignment? Sarah asked conversationally as she simultaneously grabbed a Morthic warrior's arm and used his own momentum to send him crashing into his companions. Almost, Marcus replied, his voice completely calm as he systematically dismantled the Morthic formation with movements that seemed choreographed. I'm having trouble with the third-order differential equations. The math gets complex when you factor in relativistic effects. Try approaching it from a dimensional analysis perspective, David suggested while efficiently rendering two Morthic warriors unconscious, with precise strikes to their neural clusters. I had the same problem with my thesis work last cycle. The students watching the footage sat in stunned silence as the humans continued their casual academic discussion, while simultaneously engaging in combat that would have challenged the galaxy's most skilled warriors. But more disturbing than their tactical efficiency was their emotional state. They're smiling, Nyx Volaris observed, their shadow form flickering with a mixture of fascination and horror. All of them. They're actually enjoying this. The footage confirmed what the shadow being had noticed. The humans' expressions showed not the grim determination of warriors, or the cold calculation of assassins, but something approaching joy. They moved with the fluid grace of artists creating a masterpiece, their faces lit with the satisfaction of beings who had found their perfect element. Sarah's discussing her sister's wedding plans, Melandra noted, her bark-like skin showing patterns of complete bewilderment. She's describing flower arrangements while simultaneously calculating the optimal pressure points to disable a Kranthian warrior. And Marcus just made a joke, added Zerthul Prime, their particle clouds swirling with confusion. He's making puns about quantum mechanics while orchestrating a tactical maneuver that would impress the galaxy's finest military strategists. The footage showed the humans operating on multiple cognitive levels simultaneously. They were completely aware of every threat, every opportunity, every tactical development, while maintaining normal conversation about completely unrelated topics. Their brains seemed to process combat as a background activity, requiring no more conscious attention than breathing. Temporal index, 14 hours 49 minutes and 33 seconds. The system announced. Combat resolution achieved. Casualties 0. Injuries 12, all non-fatal, in 17 minutes. 3 human students had neutralized 12 of the galaxy's most skilled warriors without causing a single death. The Morthic lay unconscious or incapacitated around the laboratory, their injuries precisely calculated to cause maximum effect with minimum permanent damage. But the most disturbing part was what happened next. As the immediate threat was neutralized, the humans immediately shifted their attention to the injured Morthic. They began providing medical assistance with the same casual competence they had displayed during combat. Marcus, can you stabilize the bleeding on the Kranthian? Sarah asked while examining a Morthic warrior's injuries. The wound is deeper than I intended. Already on it, Marcus replied, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. David, the Valdorian analog near the quantum computer, has a concussion. Can you monitor his neural activity while I work on the others? The humans are treating their enemies' injuries. Kirchhoff observed, his thought patterns creating aurora displays of complete confusion. They're providing medical care to beings who just tried to kill them, not just medical care. Dr. Yilthara corrected, her skin cycling through colors that indicated profound unease. They're providing expert medical care. They know exactly how to treat injuries in species they've never encountered before. The footage showed the humans working with quiet efficiency to stabilize their former opponents. They moved between the unconscious Morthic warriors, assessing injuries, providing treatment, and monitoring vital signs with the competence of trained xenobiologists. This is impossible, protested Thorokvel, his crystalline form creating discordant harmonics. They can't simultaneously be warriors and healers. The psychological profiles don't support this level of cognitive flexibility. Human psychological profiles apparently don't follow normal patterns, Dr. Yilthara replied grimly. They seem to view combat and healing as complementary skills rather than opposing ones. They hurt precisely so they can heal effectively. The footage continued to show the humans' post-combat behavior. They were cataloging their opponents' injuries, discussing treatment options, and even expressing concern for the Morthic warriors' well-being. Their conversation had shifted from academic topics to medical terminology, but their tone remained as casual as if they were discussing the weather. Sarah's apologizing. Zephyr 9 observed with growing amazement. She's actually apologizing to the Morthic for the severity of their injuries, and Marcus is explaining the tactical decisions that led to each injury, added Nyx Volaris, their shadow form rippling with disturbed energy. He's giving them a post-combat analysis as if it were a learning exercise. The footage showed Marcus kneeling beside Graxthmore, who was beginning to regain consciousness. The human's voice was gentle, almost paternal, as he spoke to the Morthic leader. The injury to your left shoulder will heal completely in about 6 weeks, Marcus explained calmly. I had to dislocate it to prevent you from using your primary weapon, but the damage is minimal. You'll want to keep it immobilized for the first few days to prevent complications. Graxthmore's response was a mixture of rage and confusion. You defeated us. Why are you helping us? Because you're hurt, Sarah replied simply, as if the answer were obvious. We don't enjoy causing pain, we're just very good at it. When necessary. Now hold still while I check your neural responses. The exchange revealed something profound about human psychology that none of the galactic species had anticipated. The humans didn't view their former enemies as conquered foes, but as patients requiring care. Their capacity for violence was matched by an equally developed capacity for compassion. The medical reports make more sense now, Dr. Yulthara observed, her skin cycling through colors that indicated deep contemplation. The humans' injuries were precisely calculated not for maximum damage, but for optimal healing. They hurt their opponents in ways that would cause the least long-term complications. They're not just warriors, Kirikshas realized, his thought patterns, creating patterns of dawning understanding. They're warrior healers. They've weaponized compassion. The footage showed the humans continuing their medical work until Institute security arrived. Even then, they remained calm and cooperative, providing detailed reports on each Morthic warrior's condition and recommended treatment protocols. Look at their faces, Veltraquin observed, her translucent form shimmering with a mixture of admiration and fear. They're not proud of what they've done. They're satisfied, like artists who have completed a challenging piece, because that's exactly what they are. Dr. Yulthara said quietly, they're artists of survival. They've turned the most fundamental challenge of existence, the struggle to live in a hostile universe, into an art form. The footage ended with the humans being escorted from the laboratory by Institute security. Their parting words to the recovering Morthic warriors were expressions of concern and offers to help with their recovery process. Temporal index, 15 hours 17 minutes and 42 seconds. The system announced. Recording complete. Classification level, Omega, authorized personnel only. The laboratory fell silent as the holographic displays faded, leaving the students to process what they had witnessed. The implications were staggering, challenging every assumption they had made about the nature of intelligence, civilization, and the relationship between the two. They're not monsters, Zephyr 9 said finally, her voice filled with wonder. There's something else entirely. They're beings who have learned to find joy in the art of survival, and that's what makes them so dangerous, Dr. Yulthara replied, her skin cycling through colors that indicated profound concern. Most species view survival as a necessary burden. Humans view it as an art form to be perfected. They don't just want to survive, they want to excel at survival. The council was right to expel them, Thorokvel observed, his crystalline form resonating with reluctant acceptance. Not because they're evil, but because they're so fundamentally different from us that coexistence might be impossible. They've challenged Nyx Volaris, their shadow form flickering with defiance. They saved us. They protected us. They showed mercy to beings who intended to use us as an excuse for genocide. How is that different from what we would want to do? Because we couldn't do it, Kirikshas replied, his thought patterns creating somber colors. We would want to save our friends, but we wouldn't be able to. We would want to show mercy to our enemies, but we wouldn't know how. The humans don't just have good intentions, they have the capability to act on them. The debate that followed was intense, passionate, and ultimately futile. The students had witnessed something that challenged their fundamental understanding of what it meant to be intelligent, civilized, and moral. The humans had shown them a form of existence that was simultaneously more violent and more compassionate than anything in their experience. "There's something else," Dr. Yulthara announced, her voice carrying undertones that suggested another revelation. "The footage you've seen is from the official investigation. But there's more. The humans' personal recording devices captured additional material that wasn't included in the official reports." "What kind of additional material?" asked Zephyr 9, her wings creating sharp whispers of anticipation. "Conversations between the humans during their expulsion," the professor replied. "Discussions about their experiences at the Institute, their feelings about leaving, and their plans for the future." The students exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a web of shared curiosity. They had just witnessed the most classified footage in the Institute's archives, but the promise of even more intimate revelations was irresistible. "Marcus left behind a final message," Dr. Yulthara continued, her skin cycling through colors that suggested deep emotion. "A recording addressed to the students he had worked with. To you, specifically, Zephyr 9. The Zentarian felt her compound eyes widening with surprise. "A message for me. For all of you." The professor corrected. "But you were mentioned by name. He wanted you to understand something about humanity that the official reports couldn't convey." The holographic display activated once more, showing the familiar face of Marcus Chen Valdez. But this time, he wasn't in a combat situation or formal interview. He was in his dormitory room, surrounded by the personal belongings that had made the sterile space feel like home. "Hello, Zephyr 9, he began, his voice carrying the same gentle calm that had characterized his interactions with the Morthok warriors, "and hello to whoever else is watching this. I know you're probably confused about what happened, about what we are, about why we did what we did." His image paused, and the students could see him considering his words carefully. When he continued, his voice carried depths of emotion that none of them had expected. "We're not monsters," he said simply. "We're not angels either. We're humans. We're beings who have learned to find beauty in the struggle to survive, joy in the challenge of protecting those we care about, and peace in knowing that we can face whatever the universe throws at us. You see violence when you look at us," he continued, his eyes seeming to look directly at each student watching the recording. "But that's not what we are. We're gardeners who have learned to tend the garden of existence with both gentle hands and sharp tools. We're artists who have learned to create beauty from the raw materials of chaos and conflict." The recording showed Marcus standing and walking to his window, gazing out at the stars that surrounded the Institute. "We didn't choose to be this way. The universe chose it for us. Our homeworld was hostile. Our history was violent. Our evolution was driven by the need to survive in conditions that would have destroyed other species. But we didn't let that destroy us. We learned to thrive in it, and that's what makes us dangerous," he admitted, turning back to face the camera. "Not because we're evil, but because we've learned to find joy in the very challenges that would break other species. We've learned to see opportunity in chaos, hope in despair, and strength in adversity." The recording showed Marcus sitting back, down, his expression taking on the patient demeanor of a teacher addressing beloved students. "The council was right to expel us, not because we're a threat to you, but because we're a reminder of what you might become if you ever faced the challenges that shaped us. And you're not ready for that. Maybe you never will be. But I want you to remember something," he continued, his voice taking on an urgency that made the students lean forward. "When the universe tests you, and it will test you, remember that intelligence isn't just about understanding the world around you. It's about adapting to it, surviving it, and finding ways to thrive in it. Remember that civilizations aren't just about creating peace, they're about creating the strength to protect that peace." The recording was interrupted by a soft chime, and Marcus looked toward the door. "That's my escort," he said with a slight smile. "Time to go. But before I do, I want to say one more thing." His expression became serious, almost paternal. "You're going to face challenges that will test everything you believe about intelligence, civilization, and the nature of existence itself. When that happens, remember that survival isn't just about staying alive, it's about staying human. Or, in your case, staying true to whatever makes your species special. The universe is vast, beautiful, and utterly indifferent to our existence, Marcus concluded, his voice carrying the weight of ancient wisdom. But that doesn't mean we have to be indifferent to each other. We can choose to be gardeners of civilization, artists of survival, and guardians of hope. We can choose to find joy in the challenge of making something beautiful from the raw materials of existence. The recording ended with Marcus gathering his belongings and walking toward the door. His final words were spoken softly, almost as an afterthought. Take care of each other, and remember we're not enemies, we're just different kinds of gardeners. The holographic display faded, leaving the students in contemplative silence. The message had revealed something about humanity that no amount of tactical analysis or psychological profiling could have conveyed. The humans weren't just warriors or healers or scholars, they were beings who had learned to find meaning and joy in the fundamental challenge of existence itself. They're not coming back, Zephyr 9 said finally, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. The council won't change their decision, and the humans won't ask them to. They've accepted that they don't belong here, but they've left us with something, Dr. Yulthara observed, her skin cycling through colors that indicated deep contemplation. They've shown us a different way of thinking about intelligence, about civilization, about the relationship between strength and compassion, and about the nature of survival itself, added Kirikshas, his thought patterns creating patterns of dawning understanding. They've shown us that survival isn't just about avoiding death. It's about finding ways to thrive in the face of impossible challenges. As the students prepared to leave the laboratory, they carried with them a new understanding of the species that had been expelled from their midst. The humans weren't monsters or angels, they were gardeners of existence, artists of survival, and guardians of hope. They had learned to find joy in the very challenges that would break other species, and in doing so, they had become something both beautiful and terrible. The Institute would continue its mission of education and enlightenment, but it would do so with the knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy, there existed beings who had learned to turn the fundamental challenge of existence into an art form, and perhaps, in the dark years to come, that knowledge would prove to be the most valuable lesson the Institute had ever taught. The classified footage would remain sealed in the archives, but its truth would live on in the hearts and minds of those who had witnessed it. And when the universe finally tested them as Marcus had promised it would, they would remember the humans who had shown them that survival wasn't just about staying alive, but about finding ways to create beauty from the raw materials of existence itself. In the end, the humans had left them with the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that even in a vast and indifferent universe, intelligence and compassion could find ways to thrive together, creating something greater than either could achieve alone.